So I guess this is our cue to get started, everyone. Once again, welcome and thank you so much for joining this webinar today. We're thrilled to have you. This webinar, as you'll know, is going to be focused on new climate tools for small food and beverage manufacturers, and that's probably who you are on the call. My name is Pamela Jouven. I'm the director of the SME Climate Hub. I'll be, setting the scene at the beginning of this webinar, but I'm also joined by a few colleagues who will be leading on the demo today. So if we move on to the next slide, I can give you a little bit of an idea of what the agenda is going to look like. So we're going to start with this very brief introduction, and then, as I said, we are going to take you through a demo of our latest tools at the SME Climate Hub, so the ones that we launched specifically to support food and beverage manufacturing, SMEs. There will be time for questions towards the end, and then we'll have some closing remarks as well. As some of you will have heard, we are currently recording this webinar, but if this is something that you're not comfortable with, we can stop the recording before the Q&A session. We just want to make sure that as many people as possible benefit from this demo, even after the fact. As I said, I won't be the only one speaking today. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll see that I'm here with my colleague Daniel Altman, who's Net Zero Action Manager at the SME Climate Hub. And we're also lucky to have Alison with us, who's founder and CEO of Gorwell Consulting, and who played a key role in developing these new resources for food and beverage manufacturing SMEs. Now, before we dive into the demo, just a little bit of background, starting from the next slide. A little bit of background on the SME Climate Hub. First of all, some of you will be familiar with the platform already, but just as a reminder, we at the SME Climate Hub, we operate a one-stop shop for SME climate action, which means that we have a digital platform that does three things for SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises. First of all, we provide a number of tools and resources that are specifically designed for SMEs and completely free of charge to help smaller businesses measure their emissions, but also build climate action plans to really, deliver on their commitments. Then we also have a simplified net zero commitment. I was just mentioning that acts as the key entry point for small and medium-sized enterprises to join the Race to Zero campaign. It's aligned with science. It's about reaching net zero emissions by 2050. And last but not least, we also provide a simplified reporting process for SMEs. So we have a reporting tool for small businesses, even a version for micro businesses that our SMEs are welcome to use. And for those who have already disclosed their emissions and progress through other platforms, that's also an option to upload existing reports. So that's what the one-stop shop looks like, really. And some of you will wonder why we're focusing on SMEs, if you don't know already, since you're probably a small business yourselves. So just a few stats, I guess, to finish that in the scene and really explain why we're so passionate about supporting small businesses. SMEs really play a key role at local community level and as part of supply chains. They make up 90% of businesses worldwide. They employ 2 billion people, which is enormous, of course. We also know that they're more vulnerable when it comes to climate change and climate impacts. Half of them never reopen after a disaster, and also they have very specific challenges. We run annual surveys to better understand the needs and motivators of our community of SMEs, and some of the stats that you see here on the right are from our latest community survey report. So as you can see, in order to take greater climate action, SMEs need support in different forms, so government incentives, specific tools, consistent reporting processes. So this is the gap that we're trying to fill at the SME Climate Hub. And thankfully, we know that a lot of SMEs also see the benefits of taking climate action, which certainly helps. And these benefits, again, you have a few examples here, but they range from meeting customer expectations all the way to strengthening resilience. Which I guess brings us to food and beverage SMEs and the reason why we decided to develop resources specifically for this industry. Once again, you probably know this since you're operating in this sector, but the food system is responsible for over 30% of global emissions. So it really has a key role to play. And within this system, well, farming, food production, transportation, waste disposal, all these different activities have an impact not only on carbon emissions, but also on things like food security and public health. So, multiple impacts, but also multiple potential benefits when you start really looking at how you operate as a food and beverage business. And then, once again, SMEs, even though they're small, they really have a huge role to play. Because of their sheer number, but also because they're agile and they have access to a number of resources through the hub or other platforms. So even as an SME, you can slow emissions for the food system, and by doing so, you can reduce ongoing and future risks. And these risks include supply chain disruptions, rising food costs, of different threats to farmer livelihoods or even food safety concerns. So together, really, we have a big role to play, and we can move the needle for this sector. I'm going to stop here because I think that we want to spend most of the time today really focusing on the demo. So I'll pass the mic on to Dan, and I'm just going to encourage you as we go through this demo to maybe log into the hub if you haven't already. So you can look for us on Google, very easy, smeclimatehub.org. And then if you access the resources directly, you'll find the links in the chat box. You can already create your account and go through the tools as we take you through the demo to really familiarize yourselves with the content. So over to you, Dan.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Pamela. And it's great to have everyone on the call. Liz, if we could just move to the next slide. So yeah, just to give the overview of the resources we have built and made. So we did this over last year and released these in the summer. But they consist of a number of different things. So firstly, as touched on, we have our food and beverage manufacturing page or space on the SME Climate Hub. And within this, we've got a few different resources. First is the Food and Beverage Sector Action Checklist. So this is a list of actions for SME sectors to take across their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And this is kind of broken down into a modular approach to help them guide them on which actions they should take first and help them along that journey. And I will go into a bit more detail into that in a bit. And then we also have our 2 courses as well. So these focus on 1, reducing and transitioning energy use, and 2, on tackling logistics holistically. Again, we'll come on to more detail in a bit and run through these courses, but these are free for anyone who registers a tool user on the SME Climate Hub. Each one's about 30-minute long. They consist of various animated videos and knowledge checks, and have a number of downloadable features as well that you can circulate internally. And they were designed in consultation with SMEs and sector experts, but we'll come on to a bit more later. And Alison, who's on the call, can also come in and explain a bit more about how we put these together as well. But Liz, if you stop sharing your screen, actually, I can share mine and give a quick overview of the resources. If you bear with me. Brilliant. So here, I'm hoping you can see the food and beverage page. We can This is the food and beverage manufacturing page. As you'll see, we have our courses up front, and we'll come on to these in a bit more detail. But then below is the sector action checklist we talked about. So as you can see, we've got 3 different categories. 1 being get started, 2 making an impact internally, and 3 how extending impact through your supply chain. And each of these categories have a number of overarching actions we recommend SMEs in the sector take. So for example, for get started, we've got plan climate action, reduce emissions from packaging, reduce your waste from your operations, and understand your customers' climate expectations. Within each of these, if you select learn more, we have the key steps for each of these actions, examples of SMEs in that of actions that SMEs in that sector have taken, and then a number of relevant resources underneath that help you tackle each of these actions as well. And these could be the external resources with some of our trusted partners, or they'll be our own internal ones. So for example, for this one, which is reducing emissions from packaging, we have the first step, which one is to assess your current packaging and the carbon footprint associated with that. Number two being to redesign your packaging to help you reduce those emissions and see cost savings. Number three, to engage with suppliers as well to find if there's other low emission suppliers or materials you could be using. Number four is around communicating proactively with your customers over your new packaging and the associated positive impacts. And number five being to formalize your company's policy on sustainable packaging. So each of the actions under the wider plan follow this same approach and hopefully help you narrow down and prioritize actions you can take, but also help break it down step by step depending on where you are in your journey. I'll stop sharing my screen quickly if you can reshare the slides, Liz. And then we'll come on to the courses. Brilliant. So, as for the actual courses themselves, we have two, like we said. So, the first one is on reducing and transitioning energy use. This focuses on three core modules. The first is how you can understand and track the energy use across your facility and identify where the hotspots are when it comes to your emissions. Number two is then how you can reduce those energy use and increase efficiencies across your operations and facility. And number three outlines how to procure renewable energy and what the different options are to do that. And this has also very much been designed to be shared with and discussed with your co-manufacturers or facility owners. And also, as you'll see in a bit, comes with a guide that helps you do that as well. And number three is, the second course is on tackling your logistics and the emissions associated with that. So again, this is broken down into three core modules. One on understanding and reducing the emissions logistics, the emissions from your logistics chain. So really how you can map that out and identify where the emissions are coming from and where the opportunities are. Also focusing on the solutions as well for minimizing the footprint, and then how you can account for the benefits for it as well and show that to both your external stakeholders, but also your internal ones to continue to get buy-in. But I might hand over to Alison now, if we just keep this slide up, to explain a bit how we arrived at these topics as well and why they're particularly important and of impact for SMEs as well. So Alison, do you want to come in?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to join. I'm so excited to be sharing these courses. These courses, we did an extensive process of gathering input from both SMEs and their larger customers over a period of a couple of months. So we through those interviews, identified sort of what the scope of operations were for typical SMEs, what they controlled directly, what they were working with contract manufacturers on, and where we really wanted to be oriented towards action. So where companies had some SMEs, there were models of SMEs taking action and having success, and that there were also resources or reference materials that were of high quality and relevant to multiple jurisdictions or geographies for tackling these topics. So after we identified 5 topics through these interviews, we then did sort of an iterative selection process where we scored each of the topics in terms of desirability to SMEs in the sector, viability and feasibility. And we boiled it down to sort of the top 3, and then we held a meeting with our steering committee of large corporates to select the final 2. So I think there's so many ways that SMEs in this sector can take action. Some of the topics we didn't cover were packaging is an area of big passion for many SMEs, as well as ingredient emissions and food loss and waste. Those were the other 3 that we looked at. But these 2 are ones where we felt that they were in the scope of control for companies, and they had high potential to really help folks move forward, and not just we really didn't want this to be necessarily reporting oriented, but rather impact oriented, and that was sort of the deciding factor that helped us align on these final two as the two highest priority topics. Dan, I think back over to you, unless there's anything else you would like me to say about that process.
No, that was super helpful. Yeah, very comprehensive. We can move to the next slide, Liz. And just to let people know, if you have any questions, do pop them in the chat box. We've got plenty of time at the end for Q&A, whether that be about SME Climate Hub or the tools or anything more in general. Do pop them in, and Liz will help facilitate that when we get to the Q&A session. But yeah, just to break down the courses in a bit more detail, so you know what to expect. As for the energy course. As we said, it breaks into 3 core modules, each of these bullet points constituting a video effectively. The first one being around understanding and tracking the energy use around your facility, particularly how you can map your energy needs using energy management systems. Once you then have an idea of what your energy use is, then moves into module 2, which focuses on reducing that energy use and increasing your efficiency. That includes refining purchasing decisions, how you can identify what low impact and high impact actions are, and how you can make the business case for this as well internally. Because obviously understanding that very often the person responsible in an organization for net zero isn't necessarily the decision maker. And so it's really important they have the information and the knowledge they need to be able to communicate that to the key decision makers within the organization. So that's an important part of both the courses, actually. And the third module looking at how to procure renewable energy on site as well. So this has a breakdown of all the various different options, how you can access it, and does a deep dive into the couple of the more common ones available. And then for each within the course as well, like we said, we've got a number of additional materials. So these range from downloadable text versions of each of the videos. So when you finish each video, it gives you an option to download it as a PDF. So this is then something you can share internally if you want to be able to upskill those within your business, but perhaps they don't have the time to engage with the course fully. You can send them individual videos for content they might find interesting, depending on their role within the business. We also have a number of different guides, which are effectively PDFs or documents, looking at how to get an energy audit, a breakdown of key regional power grids, so you can understand where the energy in your power grid comes from, as well as mentioned before, a guide on how you can engage your facility manager or co-manufacturer on the topics within the course as well, and then links to various relevant external resources that will help you throughout. We just go on the next slide. Brilliant. And then the second course, focusing on logistics, also has 3 modules. Again, the first of these focusing on one, why logistics matters and is important not only to the climate but for the bottom line. So explaining very much that the cost savings and the opportunities that come from taking these actions beyond just reducing your emissions, again, which can be really impactful and powerful when it comes to getting that buy-in internally and with your customers as well as exploring what actions are actually feasible for your business and how you can identify that as well. And then module 2, focusing more on the solutions. So understanding alternatives to your current logistics operations and what you can do, and helping you solidify your climate action as well. So this ranges from topics such as using EVs or what other actions you can do around optimizing your packaging to mean you've got more space on your trucks, or engaging different types of suppliers and helping them think about what kind of options they can take when it comes to the methods of transport or methods of transport you use internally. And we also then, at the end of this module, have a really excellent case study from an SME in our community who has done a lot of this already and taken a lot of the actions identified in the course, and they've already seen some really concrete benefits. So we have a video that kind of talks through their story and their journey and what they did, which hopefully provides a really good real world example. And there's also, I think you can explore that more on our website as well, because we've got it in a written form as a case study too. And then The final one around accounting for the benefits once you have a more efficient logistics operations as well, and how you can use that to build your brand, reputation, and connect with customers, as well as internally track the cost savings delivered by the changes you've done, again, helping secure more buy-in for future actions. And again, this does come with additional resources, like I said, downloadable text versions again of each videos that you can share internally, as well as a guide to how you can improve the your fleet as well, if you have one, as well as a number of links to relevant external resources. So like I said, both these courses are free, and the best way to interact with them is just register as a tool user on the hub. It takes about 1 minute. There's no cost associated with any of it or commitment required. So do just check them out, and you can have a play about with yourself. Super interactive. You can take them at your own pace, so you can take it a video at a time, module at a time. There's self-assessments throughout you can use as well. So do check it out, and always open to feedback as well, on what you found helpful. And what I also think I missed as well is we've also got on the food and beverage manufacturing space, which I think Liz has now put a link to. If you scroll down to the bottom, you also see all the various case studies we have relevant to the sector. That's also a portfolio of case studies we continue to grow as and when we speak to businesses. So always keen to hear from any business who have taken actions as well, and maybe we could feature you on that as well. Liz, if you could just share the next slide. Just wanted to talk through outside of this offering, what we have on the hub outside of the specific food and beverage manufacturing materials. We have a number of other resources and tools, including what we consider our core tools. So this includes our carbon calculators, which I'll come on to a bit, but we have free carbon calculators that can help you measure emissions and identify hotspots across your operations. We'll be launching a climate action planner at the end of March as well, which will help you, a very interactive tool that will build a climate action plan for you and identify specific actions to your business that you can take as well. And then finally, a reporting tool that allows you year on year to publicly report on your progress as well once you started taking these actions and measuring your emissions. And that's something you can publicly communicate with your stakeholders as well to show the great progress you're making. This is all underpinned by the SME climate commitment that Pamela was talking about that we have. That is a very public commitment you can make to show your stakeholders you're committed to net zero. And then underneath those core tools, we then have a number of other capacity building resources. So we do have other more sector agnostic courses as well. These focus on anything from how to build governance and strategy, net zero governance strategy in your organization, how to address your supply chains and reduce operational emissions, and engage with the community. Similar format to the other courses we've talked about today, except from they take a little bit less time. They're maybe 20 minutes long, but very interactive. Take your own pace. We also have action guides, which are short practical guides, PDFs that you can circulate internally and externally, that break down, again, core topics, anything ranging from how to set targets to how to improve employee commuting in your organization. Again, bite-sized documents to help bring you up to speed. Touched on case studies. We've got a number of case studies on the hub, as well as pointing out to external resources. And we have our action space, which hosts all of our resources, so you can navigate that as well. And hopefully it's a very intuitive feature platform, so you can easily find a resource relevant to a topic you're looking for. Just do the next slide, Liz. Just wanted to quickly touch on our carbon calculators. So we launched these last year, in the spring last year. We have two. We have the small business carbon calculator, which is appropriate for those smaller sized businesses who operate across one site and maybe haven't even measured their emissions before. A super easy and intuitive tool to use. It'll help you quickly identify hotspots, support you with your sustainability reporting, and we'll also be embedding multiple languages in that across the summer as well. But a really quick and easy tool if you haven't measured your emissions before. Now we have the Advanced Business Carbon Calculator. This is actually hosted by our partners at Equipoise. Again, both of these are completely free to use and open access. But this is a comprehensive, transparent, audible calculator suitable for more medium to larger sized businesses, but has the ability to incorporate data from multiple sites as well. So if you do operate across multiple sites, perhaps a tool for you to build up an understanding of your emissions and start identifying where your hotspots are, so you know how to address them. Hopefully pairs nicely with the courses. So once you have those hotspots, if they're on your logistics or to do with the energy you're building, you can then get the relevant guidance needed to take them. If we do the next slide, just a quick overview of our reporting tool as well. Like I said, if you do make our climate commitment, we ask you to report on an annual basis to us. We think it's struck a really nice balance between collecting a really good level of data that's really helpful both for yourselves, but also any partners you might have or anyone you supply, for example, but also not being incredibly time consuming or super detailed to the point where it's going to take you ages and money to get your head around to get the data required. So a really nice middle ground. Again, year provides you with year-on-year comparisons. If you do it year on year or do it regularly, helps you hold your business accountable. Can be a really good tool as well to upskill people internally as well and get that internal buy-in to hold people a bit more accountable as well. And our reporting cycle takes place. So you ask SMEs to report by October 1st of each year, but you have the option to extend that to April if you haven't had time to fill it out as well. So it's nice and flexible. Brilliant. And then I think if we go to the next slide, that is it. And we can move over to questions. That's it about the platform. That's it about the resources and tools. Like I said, please do, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat box. Super happy. It could be about the courses themselves. It could be about the platform. It could be about, really keen to also just hear if you've come across any challenges in your business as well. Or if you've done any action that's actually really worked for you guys, or if you've got any tips and tricks you can share with anyone else on the call. I'll hand over to Liz, who's got access to that chat and can share more as well. But really keen just to hear any questions or any sort of feedback or learnings you've had as well.
Thanks, everyone. Great presentation. I don't think there are any questions currently in the chat box. There's also a raise hand function, and we're not a super large crowd today, so feel free to raise your hand and just speak directly to the group if there are any burning questions.
If not, feel free to if there are any questions, I mean, we can always take some of the time back and you can use it to log on to the courses, and you feel free to contact us as well if you've got any follow-up questions or anything burning you want to share as well. That's more than welcome. Anything, Liz? If not, we can maybe move over some closing remarks.
I don't think so. It's a quiet group today.
Brilliant. That's absolutely fine. I think we are recording the session as well, so we'll be sending that round as well with the slides. But yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming along. Hopefully that's broken down the courses and the materials we've produced. Hopefully give a better understanding of what they are, so you can start taking them with confidence, as well as the wider offering we have on the hub. Again, everything we do is completely free to use. Open access, hopefully applicable regardless of where you are as well, in the information of that. So do take it, and please get in touch if you've got any questions. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.